I think a better use for this would actually be if it connected to your credit card statement and your budget and told you, yes, I see you want that product, but do you really need it? Because this is how much you spent on that category. This week in e-commerce, episode 130. I am Mal Chia, recording from you live from Singapore, where I am at eTail, and Alex joining us from Australia.
We are international. How are you, Mal?
I'm doing really well. It's been a whirlwind trip so far. So got in here Sunday night. Monday was just recovering and trying to catching up on sleep, and then yesterday was the first day of eTail, which was huge. It keeps getting bigger and bigger each year, and it's also interesting how the conversation keeps changing as well. With Asia very much focused on becoming more D2C led, as opposed to marketplaces, which have been traditionally very strong in Asia. So a lot of the conversation around that, but then also AI dominating everything. I reckon AI has been in every single session.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that if AI isn't in your session, then that in itself is a bit of a red flag. So
Yeah. Yeah, but AI is a tool, and that was kind of like I chaired one of the tracks yesterday, and that was my really what I was focusing on, the fact that AI is a tool at the end of the day. It
yeah,
can't be your entire strategy. And there were some really great speakers there. There was one in particular who ran through from Kushal's Fine Jewelry in India. They launch 1,000 new SKUs every week to over 100 stores as well as online as well. And they have AI embedded throughout their organization. It was a fantastic case study about how they use it for everything from understanding what the trends are, uncovering trends, then helping to develop product. And then once the product is made, then enriching that product data to then go into all the stores. It was quite remarkable.
yeah, no, that's really cool. I think it's all about AI and application and what that actually means.
That's right. That's right. Because I think the other statistic, which has been floating around a little while, is that business leaders, only 5% of business leaders actually feel they're getting an ROI on AI just yet. All right, we're going to dive straight into our stories because we do have quite a few, including one big one, which we're going to dive into. And there's been a lot of talk about this, as a lot of people would have seen over the last 24 hours. First of all is H&M have exited Tasmania while By Charlotte are launching into WA. So some stories of some stores shutting down and some stores opening as well. So this is part of H&M's global push to close over 200 stores globally, and obviously rationalizing that Tasmania is not a market which they want to continue in as well. But in contrast, By Charlotte opening, which is a nice homegrown story.
Yeah, and I thought what was noteworthy from that By Charlotte story was they're entering Western Australia and they're entering straight away with 3 stores, coming in with that impact, but also that accessibility. I think is really important.
Yeah, I think so too. I think when you've got this contrast there, where By Charlotte, obviously much more of a premium positioning than H&M, finding it tough in a small market like Tasmania, where there's probably a lot of competition from the likes of Kmart, Uniqlo, anyone else like that. But By Charlotte launching into there, and I do like that fact, like you said, where they're launching 3 stores. They're not going small. They're looking to really make an impact with this. And if you've got the capital to do that, that's absolutely the way to do it. Otherwise it can take a long time if you're trying to scale from 1 to 2 to 3. But going in 3 means that, you mean business.
Yeah, exactly. By Charlotte, one of my favorite clients, if I'm honest. Like their product is amazing, but their store experience, I'm not sure if you've seen their stores in Sydney. They do a beautiful job.
Yeah, I think it's a great story because they're homegrown and they started from D2C as well. Another one of those D2C brands, online only, who've now moved into physical retail. So definitely a trend which we're seeing, and I think really important for a lot of brand strategy.
Mhm.
All right, KMD brands have been handed a bid by Stokehouse to demerger, to let me get this right, to spin out Rip Curl as a separate brand and then merge with Stokehouse. I think I got that right.
Yep. No, that's my understanding of it as well.
Yeah. So, what is your take on this?
I'd look, you've been in this game longer than I have, where I just find it interesting this type of story is public and makes the news because nothing actually happened. There was an offer, it got declined, but I've seen multiple articles about this. So that in itself I find really interesting. But I think the statement there of KMD saying, no, we don't see the value in this, there's no value in the shareholders, kind of speaks to their belief in their current strategy and how they're pushing along.
Yeah, and the reason why this gets reported is because KMD are a public company. So as a public company, this does have to be declared. And just saying, looking at this as well, they want to spin off probably arguably the strongest asset in KMD's portfolio as well. So why would you be getting rid of your biggest brand? And moving that into a new entity. And like as I said, it doesn't really, the price they were offering for it as well doesn't actually inject any new capital into, but they're not bringing any new capital from Stokehouse into KMD. So look, it doesn't appear to make sense. But this is also interesting at now where people are just lowballing at the moment in retail because they don't see any value in it. If they saw that there was a huge run rate, they surely would have made an offer which was a little bit more serious than that. It's not quite tech world where it's a bit of an arms race when you look at things like the streaming services and Paramount buying Warner, when competing against Netflix, where I think in retail right now, it is a bit soft. Like people are being a little bit more cautious about what they're putting into some of these brands.
And I think what makes KMD so powerful as well is they've got a couple of really big brands, right? But there's still that diversification. I don't know a lot about Stokehouse, but off the back of a few, I think it was O'Neill, the founder of O'Neill, and they're obviously got that like surfer experience. So, yeah, I think to your point, like that lowballing's not really going to go far.
Yep. Okay, and our final quickie for the day is Priceline have narrowed down their sale of the franchisee operations to 4 final bidders. The identities are unknown, but it does speak to like, a lot of consolidation happening in the space. So rather than having like lots of different individual franchisees, just making it just having a few who are going to take over all the operations for them.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this one roll out, see how it all lands. Sounds like they're getting to the pointy end of the sale with those 4 bidders. So someone's going to walk away disappointed, but
Yeah.
it's going to be
Look,
interesting.
there's a lot of competition right now. Obviously, Chemist Warehouse being the big dog when it comes to pharmacy. They are spending bigger and they are bigger than everyone else. And that makes it really tough to see who's going to be in that second place. And that does vary from state to state as well. A lot of pharmacies running their own strategies there. So it'll be really interesting to see where this one lands and what this also then means for the broader pharmacy market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, our first deep dive is about 2 rate rises, the pressures from oil, and really what this all means. Now, if haven't been living under a rock, the RBA announced their second consecutive rate rise last month. So this month, I should say, going from 3.85 to 4.1%. And Westpac have since announced as well that they're expecting interest rates to go up to as high as 4.85, which is a gigantic number and brings us back to COVID levels of interest rates. So this is pretty alarming when you also then factor in the fact that, we've also got the oil crisis as well, with a lot of the gas stations reporting that they've run out of fuel, which is shocking. And then Australia having to release some emergency stockpiles to be able to prop up the supply.
Yeah,
So
like, just on that,
how did it feel?
I don't know, like researching for today's episode, every article was just about fuel, right? It's a massive, massive problem. And then I'm not sure if the RBA, do we know if it's happened at the same time, coincidental, or if it's off the back of that crisis?
I think it's partly off the back as well, because the announcement was made last week. The war had been going on for another 1 or 2 weeks before that. So I think they're kind of reading the tea leaves. And it was a pretty close vote as well. Like the RBA, they don't typically vote this close, but it was a 5-4 decision to increase the rates. But the RBA governor has said that they're expecting it to actually increase even further, because headline inflation is up to 3.8. It's going to go much higher. It's well above what the RBA's target is. So it's putting even more cost pressures on Australians, I think, with the rising cost of accommodation, but then also the rising cost of fuel as well. And people still having to drive to go to work or things like that. We're talking about emergency work for home measures as well to be able to combat this increase. And if that does happen, obviously Victoria, like we saw before, they've announced their work from home laws, the right to work from home. If that now becomes commonplace and we're really pushing people to stay at home, you might actually start to see that resurgence again of activewear and comfort wear and those other types of products which boomed during COVID.
Yeah, and the value in those moments of comfort, right?
Yeah, that's right. Especially like if you don't need to leave the house anymore, you just stick around in your trackies all day.
Yeah.
Activewear may surge again. Look, we'll see what happens. I don't think people will do that, because I think you've kind of also got the added pressure of the fact that we made that mistake back then of giving people like all the COVID bonuses and things which encourage spending when really it shouldn't have been encouraged. And and that also drove inflation up incredibly high. So I don't think we'll go back to that, because I think people have learned that lesson where they probably overspent. I know I certainly overspent on many things during COVID. So I don't expect that level of spending to come back.
No, we'll have to see. I think it's the impacts widespread and still pretty unknown at this point.
Yeah, I know the shipping costs in particular is one which a lot of retailers have been looking for, because the price of shipping has pretty much gone up overnight. If you need to transport something by ground from one port or across the country, your costs have gone up, 30, 40%, if not more as well. And there's further pressures with a lot of the fertilizer, which is used in Australia, comes from that area as well.
Yeah. The probably lesson and the takeaway, which we've been talking about for a long time, is just having that strong profit margin baked into your product so you can absorb or at least have a bit of a moat around these external factors, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think you need to be looking at that. You need to be looking at your operational health to make sure that you're not going to be pushing sales too hard. And you're really focusing on your contribution margin at the end of the day. Because if you are just driving top line growth and you're having to burn the bottom line, you sacrifice the bottom line for that, you are probably going to make matters even worse for yourself at this point. So really looking at how you diversify as well. Probably, again, we've talked about this for a while, actually focus on getting lean if the things are going to be fairly tough for like the next 12 to 18 months. All right, our next deep dive is probably the big one for a week from the retail perspective, is that agentic commerce is finally here. Shopify and ChatGPT have made it a reality with an announcement in the last 24 hours that you are now going to be able to have an agentic storefront. And this is only in the US currently, but millions of merchants in the US now have the ability to sell directly from the ChatGPT interface. You find a product there, you go in there, and you can go through the entire purchase experience, the checkout experience, the fulfillment. It's all going to be handled by Shopify, exactly what a customer expects, but directly from ChatGPT. So that was reasonably exciting. A lot of people talking about that at the moment. Does this
Yeah.
move the needle?
Well, look, I think it's one to watch. I always go back to that, online launched and they said that would replace in store, text launched and they said that would replace email. So there's always that kind of skepticism to the impact, but it's definitely a growing channel. There's no argument to that. What are your thoughts, Mel?
I'm a bit skeptical about how big it's going to be, namely because I've seen this before. We've talked about social commerce, people being able to buy directly from Instagram or this and the other. It's never really taken off. People still want to go to the web store and buy directly from there or in store for that matter. So, and the percentage of traffic I'm seeing from search as well for AI search, it's growing, but it's definitely not taking over Google anytime soon. So I think it's going to be fairly minor. We went through the whole metaverse thing where people were investing into building these metaverse experiences for their brands, and no one even talks about that anymore. So again, there's a whole marketing thing where, I'm having people come to me and ask me about, should we be on this? Do we need to look out for this? Oh, should we be doing this like in our US store? And it's like, well, yeah, we can. It's native, so we can just do it straight away. But let's not invest a whole lot into it. Let's see where it goes first. There are far lower hanging fruit for us to pick before we invest a ton of money into getting our agentic storefront experience as great as it can be.
Hmm. I think one piece that I think of as well with just the nature of how you would shop in ChatGPT is for those like multi-brand retailers. Like let's say I'm buying a Kindle. It's just a price tool to find the cheapest retailer at that time, right? And that encouragement of how do you make a mark is have the lowest price.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, and I think there's also the Walmart story as well, where Walmart have actually been trialing this since November. And from all reports, the results have been pretty soft.
Yeah, I found this article really interesting, particularly around the AOV piece, where instead of building a cart, shoppers are checking out on one item, which is a problem for ChatGPT and these large language models to solve. So, how do you justify the shipping costs and all those taxes and everything around that? And they're finding, where Walmart was anyway, that it was those higher ticket items which justified that for both the shopper and the retailer rather than these smaller price point products as well.
Yeah, and there's something where I think a better use for this would actually be if it connected to your credit card statement and your budget and told you, yes, I see you want that product, but do you really need it? Because this is how much you spent on that category. You bought already like 10 band t-shirts this week. You bought XYZ supplements. Do you really need more protein? Do you really need another band t-shirt?
Commonwealth Bank does that to me whenever I purchase, and it's like, you've spent X amount on entertainment this month so far. Don't remind me.
I know that. I know that.
I don't know that, and that's the bliss.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Look, I think that to me would be a much more useful way of this to stop me from spending.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I do think though, just regardless of the instant checkout piece there, it's still a brilliant tool for brand awareness and to be found and to have that kind of occasion specific or activity specific use case. But yeah, we'll have to see how the actual checkout component goes.
Yep, absolutely. All right. And our last deep dive for the day is Myer launching into premium skincare. Now, they've labeled this category as being their greatest opportunity for growth. And they have added 3 very large brands, actually 4 very large brands, La Mer, Guerlain, Swiss Perfection, and Helena Rubinstein, all into their stores. So really pushing this after they've ended their 17-year partnership with Mecca.
Yeah, my first thought went to we've spoken about the success of Mecca time and time again. They're a brilliant business. So for Myer to be kind of edging into their space, I think is interesting. But there's so much news and so much activity in that kind of beauty and wellness space that it definitely seems strategic from Myer.
Yeah, I think, Mecca got to a point where they were big enough where they didn't need Myer anymore, and Myer needed to replace them. I think it's kind of simple as that, but also seeing the overall growth in beauty as well. In Australia, the beauty market is forecasted to grow from $3.9 billion USD to 5.1 billion in the next 5 or 6 years. That is that's huge growth. And whereas other categories, like other discretionary spend categories, are reducing in the amount of spend there, beauty, skincare is something which it's clear people still are wanted to invest in or
Yeah, for
spend.
sure. Yeah. No, they're huge numbers. Yeah, if I was Myer, I'd probably be investing as well. One thing I read too was Myer One, which oh god, excuse my ignorance, is their app
The
or
loyalty program.
their loyalty program. Yep. 5.1 million users. It's got to be one of the biggest loyalty programs in Australia. So they've got that kind of cross-sell availability from their existing customers. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think this is also a category which we've talked about the lipstick effect before, where even during times of economic crisis, people will still invest into beauty because they still want to feel good, they still want to look good, even though the world may be falling apart around them.
Yeah, that's where my mind went as well. But then I was like, can you put what is that $1.2 billion down to the lipstick effect? I don't know.
Well, I think it's a little bit more than that, but it means that it's probably going to be one of the more resilient categories, over
Yeah,
the next couple of months.
yeah, that's very true.
All right, that's a wrap for episode 130. Alex, what are you up to the rest of this week?
It's been a busy week. I'm partway through the Australia Post e-commerce report. I don't know if that one's come across your desk.
It has. I haven't actually had a chance to read it yet.
Yeah. So it's a good read. I'm probably like a part way through. So that's kind of my priority. I think there's some really good, like high level, but then just reading between the lines as well.
Yeah.
What
Well, I
about
think
you?
Monday we should break that one down.
Yes. Yeah, I was thinking that we need time to digest it.
Yeah, sounds good. Look, I am in Singapore. I'm leaving today. I'm off to Japan, so I'm going to be at the Formula One in Suzuka over the weekend, and then next week I'll be attempting to take a bit of a break with the family over there.
Oh,
But I'll still be recording.
well, I have to send you some recs. Went to Japan a couple months ago. Loved it. So
That's
you're
right.
great.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, everyone, keep innovating, keep growing, keep selling, and we will be back next week.
See you next week.